All right, there's the show. What do you think of that?
Cool.
I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, that was great. I loved it, especially because I get a lot of pushback about meditation, and especially from Christians. So I love that you brought up your own experience with prayer. And I have a Christian background, so I totally understand that and respect that
Hmm.
and love bringing that in, because a lot of times Christians will tell me, oh, you can't meditate because that has Eastern religion in it. And that's not okay. And be like, that's fine. That's your thing. No big deal. But
Yeah.
I love that you brought up your own experience. So thank you for sharing.
Well, I'm a Christian and I meditate. Um, so I go to
It
church every
doesn't
Sunday.
have it doesn't have to include those components.
And I'm going to
You can
challenge all
choose.
you Christians out there because we're still recording. Good job. We always just keep recording for a bit because sometimes the best stuff comes out at the end after the, right? You're done the show. But I'm going to challenge all you Christians. What do you think that Jesus was doing in the Garden of Gethsemane? He was praying, yes, but he was also meditating. Jesus did. There's a lot of, I don't know if it ever said Jesus meditates in the scriptures. I'd have to look at that. Maybe a translation would say that. But Jesus wasn't, and prayer is simply gratefulness for what is. Jesus wasn't going around being grateful all the time. There was times when he was listening to the voice of his Father in heaven. And that is called meditation. So don't bring all the baggage of tribalism. You're in this tribe, and then you don't even like other Christians, actually, half of you guys out there. You know, you're only one type of Christian. The other type of Christians, they're all wrong. Those guys are bad. They're not right. Listen,
I
we're
don't
just
get it.
talking about quiet time with God. If that's what you want to call it, then call it that. But it's different than prayer. And, a lot of Christians spend a lot of time praying for, oh, I want to go to Florida, God. Can you make the airline prices go down? It's like, really, man? Really? That's what God the Father in heaven does for you? Makes the airline prices go down? Really? No, seriously. I mean, sometimes you hear people praying for stuff. Oh, we'll pray for it and God will make it happen. No, more likely he'll probably help the people in Haiti if he's going to intervene in some manner in the universe today. So why don't you just be grateful for what you have, because that's prayer. And then, Jesus also says, all you Christians, the evil of the day is sufficient thereof. So what happens in the future happens in the future. So yeah, I think there's a big Christian pushback against meditation that needs to stop, because just because people don't convert to your particular worldview, it doesn't make them bad people. It doesn't, yes, you can have, religion. Religion is layered over top of what we're talking about. So if you're
Mhm.
talking about that spiritual practice, religion is a layer on top of that. And the reason why I know that is because I've spoken to so many people like you and so many other spiritual people on the podcast, and they're all talking about the same thing. It's like a substrate for us below our conscious level. And religion is in the conscious realm. And so as human beings, as creatures of the light, there's something deeper that binds us all. And you don't like the word meditation, you don't like the word prayer, call it a gratefulness practice, call it quiet time, change the name of it, and then maybe they'll like it. Spend time with the Lord without prayer. To spend time with the Lord. What do you mean by that? Well, just sit quietly and listen for his voice. What are you talking about? Yeah, you're not going to pray. You're not going to be active. You're going to be inactive. And you're going to let him speak to you. All you Christians out there giving Nikole Stanfield a hard time. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? Come on. It's just the name that can be named is not the eternal name. It's just a word that the naked apes crown. Right? Meditation. Don't like that word. Well, what word do you like? How about spend time with the Lord? Oh, yeah, that's good. Okay, good. We're on. You're going to do that every day now. You're going to spend some time with the Lord listening to him. That's what we're going to call it, right? All these names and words loaded with baggage. It's like labels and baggage. It's so gross.
Yeah. If you have a couple more minutes, I'd just love a little bit of feedback
Sure.
on um, why do you think people don't want to admit burnout? If you've started 4 businesses,
Mm-hmm.
you've seen other friends burn out.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think, or like, do you have your own personal things, or like you went
Yeah,
to
I
a
could tell you.
coach?
I could tell you for sure why they don't want to admit it, because they're
Yeah.
deep in their own egos. It's an ego
You
thing.
think it's ego?
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh, totally. Totally. So if my coach, the first thing that you got to do is show up for yourself every day. Do that
Mm-hmm.
practice. The second thing you need to, the second or third, I'm trying to remember here. The second thing is incorporate the meditation and prayer. That's showing up for yourself. The third thing, or second or third thing you need to do is get the hell out of your ego and get into your essence. You got to get out of your ego, because the ego is where you have those highs and lows. Okay. So if you, and again, I'm going to reference the Bible because that's what I know. If you take the word ego, which is a new word, it's from Jung and Sigmund Freud, kind of came up with the word ego. Okay. So what they're referring to is like your mental organs or your spiritual organs, right? So these things can become very inflated. So this idea of self, right? So you're looking at yourself, archetypes, another word for this or whatever. So you're trying to embody this certain type of thing. And what it becomes is like, so now you're going to that sales call and you're nervous. You got that nervous reaction, right? Okay, I'm going to go in there. It's like I'm going to play a big sports game or something, right? And I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do this, right? So here's the thing. When you play sports every Sunday, you play football every Sunday, you go to the dressing room, you get into that ego, right? Which is not a bad, the ego's not bad, but it has a place, right? So if you're in your ego before you're going to fight for the heavyweight championship of the world, that's understandable. Like if you're Mike Tyson and you're knocking guys out, hey, I'm the strongest man in the world. Oh, what you gonna do, son? This kind of stuff. Okay, we like to watch that. We like to see that. We like to be that. But if you're walking around every day in your ego, and you're not speaking to people from a place of authenticity, from your essence. That's what you said, the word authentic. From your essence, you're deep in your own ego. You can't. So what happens when people when they're in a chronic ego state? So chronic ego state. So you need your ego because your ego will tell you where success is. Like, oh, if you go over here, you'll become rich or you'll become famous or people will like you. That's the call to adventure in a way, right? So you need to heed the call to adventure. You need to listen to your ego, whatever the words are that you want to use it. You got to chase that. So let's say you chase it, but then all of a sudden you can't stop chasing it, right? So what happens is when somebody's in their ego, here's how you know. You either validate their ego or you go into conflict with them. So if you want to test somebody if they're in their ego or not, quit validating it. Throw a monkey wrench into their ego, right? So, whatever it is that, that they think they are, monkey with that a little bit. And if they get angry about that, someone's deep in their ego. It's because you can only have two kinds of conversations with someone in their ego. You either have a conversation that validates their ego, or you have a conversation, which is a conflict conversation. How dare you? And I'm being legitimate. Like you challenge somebody's. Have you? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just that it wasn't explained the same way.
Hegel.
What's that?
You just reinvented Hegel.
Oh, Hegel. Yeah, the philosopher Hegel. There. So but yeah, I'm not making anything up new here. But what it is like you either have validation or conflict, and then if you refuse to validate and you refuse to go into conflict, what will happen is those people will leave your life because the relationship will completely lose all energy for them. Right? So you have husband and wives that are the whole relationship is based on ego validation. Right? So take Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. Hollywood marriages are a perfect example of relationships based on ego validation. Right? So you continue to validate my ego, I continue to validate your ego, but there's a one-upmanship there. Right? There's always a one-upmanship, right? So the ego is the key. You got to get out of your ego, get into your essence. So the only thing I track now in my wellness practice is how often I'm in my ego every day and how often I'm in my essence. Everything else falls into place. If I just say, oh, that was an ego move. And I just went into my ego with Scott there about an hour ago, but I'm still going to kick your ass, Scott. But
I earned it.
But so you go into your ego and because you have to be validated or you have to have conflict. You can't listen to reason. There's no nuance. There's no in between. Perfect example of an egotistical narcissist is Donald Trump. Now, I don't hate Donald Trump. I don't think everything Donald Trump does is bad. I think that there's a lot of good policies there. I think he's a very good businessman. But what everyone doesn't like about him, what most people, they can't put their finger on. They don't know what it is, right? But what offends people so much is the narcissistic ego. That's what it is. And it's like, you egotistical bastard. You're so full of yourself, right? That's what it is that just grates on people, right? So
Yeah.
with the American people, Donald Trump is either being validated or he's in conflict. That's
You're right.
it. That's the sign
Yeah.
of someone who
Spends most of his time. Yeah.
either you validate me or we're going to have a fight. Ego.
Yeah.
Ego.
Interesting. I never looked at it like that. That's
Right?
fascinating.
Now, that doesn't mean that he's not smart. That doesn't mean that he's not a good businessman. It doesn't mean that doesn't even mean that he's a bad president. That doesn't even mean any of that. He could be, an egotistical person could be a great president. It just, if he does the right things. And there's a lot of things that Donald Trump has done that I agree with. Lots of policies that are very wise, very well thought out. But what most people they don't realize that it's not that you don't dislike the policies. You hate validating this man's ego. It's gross. It's disgusting. That's what bothers people. But the people that it doesn't bother are the people like, I'm going to validate Donald Trump's the best. And that's why you have this tribalistic atmosphere in the United States right now, because you have, and the other opposite of that ego is the anti-ego of Hillary Clinton, which is the same thing. It's just like negative numbers and positive numbers. So you have a covert narcissistic egoist in Hillary Clinton, and you have an overt narcissistic egoist in Donald Trump, right? So they're kind of like polarity. They belong together. They like match each other. They're like yin and yang with each other, right? And it's gross. People look at it and go, oh, God, we're going to vote for one of these people? Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? It's disgusting. No, I mean, it's really gross. And so a lot of people love Donald Trump because they have no issue validating his ego, because in doing so, they're validating their own, right? And that's why I really love Barack Obama. I mean, I hated the guy's policies, like so many of his policies, except for the healthcare, which is a debate Canadians had 70 years ago, right?
A different can of worms.
Yeah,
There's a big different can of worms.
The problem is that Barack Obama I don't think he ever had a Congress that was on his side or a Senate. So he was alone, right? He was alone in the White House. People say Barack Obama failed the American people. You don't understand the American political system if you say that, right? You don't understand how it works. The president's not a dictator in the United States. He can't dictate things to people. He can sign executive orders sometimes, but but he was such a great statesman. He was humble. He spoke very well. He was very presidential. But he just, bad timing, he was a shining star in the Democratic Party full of covert narcissistic egoists. That's the problem. And politics generally attracts those kind of people. That's the other problem.
Yeah,
right?
I think politicians are really good at being egotistical, egocentric.
You kind of have to be. It's like one of those things where to be the heavyweight champion of the world, to be Mike Tyson, to be Stipe Miocic, whoever you want, like one of these really tough, strong guys, you got to have a monster ego to do that. To go, what you're going to go in? Where you're going to get in? You're going to get in a cage and fight another man? Are you out of your mind? Like, think about that for a second. Like, think about that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to get these two guys. One guy weighs 260 pounds. The other guy weighs 252 pounds. We're going to put them in a cage and see who wins. Wins what? Gives the other guy a concussion or chokes him out or something like this. Okay, that's pretty exciting to watch. But the two guys that have to do that, think about the ego you have to have. And I'm not saying it's, in that case, you have to have that. It's a survival instinct. Like your ego is part of your survival instinct, right? And so you go into that ring and you're just like, I'm going to kill this guy. And you can see guys when they're scared, and you see guys that are calmer, but you have to have an ego to do that. You can't. So you have to follow the ego. It's not a bad thing. It's just, it can get out of control in a lot of people. And, unfortunately, politics attracts deep narcissistic egoists more than any other thing. It just calls to their ego so deeply, and they go up and they're willing to say anything to get the ego rush back. Mm-hmm. It's so gross. It's like I of all the politicians I've ever seen, and my dad would kill me if he heard me say this, I think Barack was the least egotistical of any. Well, Stephen Harper, the Canadian Prime Minister, was good too. He was very, very poised and good that way. But from American president standpoint, and I've only really would say Ronald Reagan forward, I would have seen and looked at as a person, but as an adult, maybe Bill Clinton was a deep narcissistic egoist, unbelievably deep, but covert. So there's overt and covert, right? Negative numbers, positive numbers. So if you want to help people, like one of the things with burnout is get out of your ego. When's the last time you've been in your essence? What are you talking about? When's the last time you didn't wake up and try to take over the world? That was the goal, right? When's the last time that you just, took a day off and played hooky with go take your wife out for lunch? When's the last time you did that? When'd you go dance with your wife? When's the last time you did that? Oh, I don't like to dance. Yeah, because your ego doesn't let you dance with your wife, right?
Because you look stupid when you do it.
Yeah, because your ego. Nobody's looking at you, buddy. Nobody cares about you when you're dancing with your wife. Nobody
That's funny.
cares. And it's sad because I spent 40 years in not 40. I was, as an adult, 16 years in my ego. So I had to get out of it. And it was one of the best things I ever did. And, I thank it. I thank my ego. Thank you for getting me this far, but I don't need you anymore. So, and my ego started this podcast. So anyway, I'm way off. Don't get me started on ego. I'll go on forever.
I didn't realize that, but I appreciate the perspective, and I'll be thinking about it and seeing how it applies.
Nikole, thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Michael. It was great to chat with you today. Have a lovely day.
You too. Bye for now.
Bye.